Hi everyone, it's Jen from Mind's Eye, and we're going to do the weekly Clearview Talk, the psychic medium reading about community matters through Universal. A lot of times, like I say, it is about politics, and we're going to see what is going on. So basically, all you need to know right now that I'm seeing through the week is this, agenda on the table that's put forward that you can't really get anything done, but really they're getting a lot done, more than what they expected and anticipated. And so, as I say it a little bit more serious today, that I actually have to say that it really is going like they think it's like a gone, but it really is not a gone. You can't get a gone. I mean, there's adherence to the rule. And when you have adherence to the rule, you have to literally go about it and actually run it in accordance of the law. So let's look at it a little bit deeper because they're pretty good at being at a button lips. But, they have these leaks and then they have the issues with Russia and Ukraine and Iraq and Israel and Palestine. They just can't get a done on that. And quite frankly, it hasn't been done in many, many years. So right now they're looking at like severe, like solidifying to the point where they're gonna say yes. Let's do some isolation on events, and it's going to hurt, and it's not really going to be the best of what they like. But when I say that this page of cups actually comes in, and it comes in young, that you can't even do. When you see this and you see strength, you actually have to say the strength in reverse, it really is this rush of emotions that stirs the pot. Now, when you see, others preaching rhetoric and it lessens the difficulty, that you really have to look around and be over your shoulder because it amps and ramps up. So that is where this passionate, like, new beginning starts and it fires everything up. And then that's the wishes. So, what really is the wishes of the American public at this time? At first they want to talk about peace, and then it's all forms of a spelling. And then when you say it goes to the point where you can't even do anything, it really says you really can't because you have insurance denial forms. So, I mean, that is where it boils right down to every day. And it's getting to the point where you have to say, well, just do it. No, there's contracts, there's steps, there's treaties, there's common ground. You can't just go and do it. So, when I see this and I see caught in the ruins in reverse, I mean, we're building up. And here's the card to confirm it's the intricacies in the industries. So when I see this and I see this initiation in the Count of Saint Germain, it really is true. With new terms, there is initiations in. And when there is initiations in, you really got to follow it through. So it really can go right through summer, winter, and fall of the first year of getting used to everything. And when you see this, the Oracle of Delphi, like groups of people of their backgrounds of for like they want to say like less of a better term of like think of like the Freemasons, the Knights of Templar, all of that, and they're like they're satanical. Really? How did you know? Because that's classified up there. So when you see the War of Roses, that's when it really gets like heated because then slander and defamation come in. And it really is like urging diversity. And I don't know why I'm doing that. So when I see this and I say add some in reverse, there's no continuance on because that's what add some means. And that's when it really forces in and floods in. It really is like the changing of the moon to the tides when it comes to it and breaking commitments. And it's really, really hard. But when you see this and you do the sands of time, you can't even believe how hard it is to actually do it, to turn back time a little bit and go, holy cow, I can actually see it come through. When I see the loving elementals, you can see the copper, you can see um, everything else that has to do with alchemy. And when you do alchemy, you have to do very light, so you can't obstruct anything. And so, what actually is it? It really has to do with a little bit of like witchcraft, because you have to stir and you have to conjure. But really, this group will come out and talk about exactly what it was like with Knights of Templar, with the Freemasons, and other groups that they have talked about that had these issues. When you see the Buddha prepares in the Akashic field, it really is about timing and energy force and just sitting and waiting. Uriel and the Sphinx actually comes in, and it really is this dictation of a fly by night. So, how would that fly by night actually dictate the rest of this week? With Easter and all the others coming through, you can't get anything done, and you can't get uh, anything else done to the highest point of max, because when you see this and it's the King of Scrolls, there's nothing written or documented. So it really is just this true continuance on of just chugging away and like chiseling away. When you see the Ark of the Covenant in reverse, it's a breaking of a rule of thumb. So the breaking of a rule of thumb, when it actually comes through, is really hard to sue and hard to stir up anything of conjure of a pot. But when you actually look at it through and true, that you can't even do a to and through and true. So then that's when the affiliates kick up. So let's look at this a little bit harder. Let's do the Tarot of Sacred Kingdoms. Here we go. Let's go through. Now, when they start actually going through this whole idea of what it would be through, I'm looking at a small community that I live in. It really has to go through like who's riding through town and what is actually coming through as potential criminal activity. Because like a lot of times, especially with farming, they want to be left alone right now. So when I see this and I see the Nine of Wands in reverse, it is this hypervigilance. And when I see the Four of Wands in reverse, there's no getting together per se, but they are together. And it really ends sharply with the Death card in reverse if anything else comes through. They're really working on like balance and like attunement and intuition, because something came through and I'm seeing like an overhead like this, and it was like toxic male energy, and it really was true male, and it's really hard to actually go through. And when you sit, it really was another country, for a lack of a better term. And when you see this and you see the Five of Swords come through, it really is this like type of steel. And then I see scaffolding, and I want to like set and actually like continue to cough it out. But really, the Magician in reverse was this type of trickery. And when I see this and I see Judgment, I actually see like paper on the table. And when I see this Hanged Man, it's going to cause a huge pause. It's going to cause a huge pause. It really was illusional and delusional, this whole thing. And when you see it and you go to this tower, it's going to cause a little bit of chaos. How would that affect it? It actually has to do with the influx of like taxes and funding. And when it went all the way through to that, you can't even understand why it would actually go through. The Knight of Pentacles to the Nine of Pentacles, it really is this offering, but the Knight offers the new opportunity to do something on a contractual matter to where it looks good and it looks prudent. And then you see this Ten of Swords go through and you say, this actually really hurts this ending because we got nothing. We really do. And that's where like the issue with the freezing of the funding is coming in. And then when you see this, you actually look at it to the highest extent of a degree. And you have to say you do have to get a degree in this because you can't even understand what is true. And so when you see the Page of Pentacles and you see the Knight of Wands together, it really is like a conjuncture, and it really like clashes and collides. It really is meant like too much stick together of a 779 to a 39. So when I see Seven of Pentacles again, it was skilled, highly skilled. When you see this and you see the Celestial Weaver, this is like this like reborn like group or individual that comes through, and you can't get a gone or anything of that nature. And there's adherence to the rule, and then there's adherence to the law, and all the way up to policy. And they say, I don't like that. I don't like that at all, because that's just not how we do things. I'm very sorry, I hear, but that's just what you have to do, because we still have issues out in the community because you did it in your own way. So when you say confirm in your own way or do it in your own way, as long as it gets done, you have to actually say that is where a lot of things do. And that's like almost a complete like act out of like it catches their breath when you're actually straightforward with them. So when you bring it to a small town and you go to a cash register and you're paying and you're trying to check out of maybe paying for gas or a snack or a beverage, and the cashier is looking at you and dictating on how it is to go and telling you to do something that's wrong, you have to say, they're looking at you like this. This is a little bit of trolling. It says, you'll survive this. There's new solutions and beginnings if you put your card in backwards. Really? And then when you look at this and you say, and draw with an energy, adventure, say yes to change, you have to say, I can't believe that came out. Call in support. You're a team of souls. Just call. Just call the police at that point, because you already know they're trying to steal your pin. So when you look at it, longing for home, homesick for the stars, intoxicated. You can't even make this up. Sometimes it does come out like that, but you can't even believe it. Don't worry, it's not time yet. They're not done. Thank you. They're not done with their crime. That's all I needed to know. So then you look at it and all of a sudden it's true. You got like your deceased loved one and you have fraud and identity theft all the way up through your minors. Now, with that being said, when they turn their gaze within and they're looking truly on what their answers are within, you have to say, who's speaking through? I can't even speak out that card. That just dropped right to the floor. So when you see this, you say, soften to love, soften to love. When you've had like identity theft and your PIN stolen so many times in a short period of year, and they call you and they actually drain your bank account on one call, even though it was the right number, you have to say it was okay to cut ties on a lot of things. Fated to destiny, I'd have to say it was written out, just get out of here. We're done. We're DONE. So when you see Venus energy, make love to life, surrender to the sweetness, I feel like it actually is softening a little bit that energy, and it says, don't worry, it's actually being like watched and seen, especially when it's common. It will run right through law enforcement to the right people, and they'll say, this is common with this person. This is actually really, really hard to say, that we just can't approach. There's something about it. So just do the best you can and keep reporting the best way that you can. So when you see this, it says, stop, embrace the winter to the great cosmic womb. It really is. Sometimes you got to stop and like look around and say, yeah, I really don't have anything. And I did surrender to a little bit of a rock bottom, but healthy. How does that actually affect politics? When it actually goes through law enforcement up to military and they're seeing bad habits and they can't get out of it, but they're really not doing anything wrong, it really will go to politics and say, this is what's true and this is what's running through here. So when you see this and it says bring the unconscious to light, usually this is what happens when you can't even get anything done. This is nourishment, body care, tenderness, and rest. It literally almost becomes mandated for those people to make them have time off. And then they go, no, that's not reality, and I have to get back to work. So that is where we're at, especially with bird flu, especially with the goings on, with the change of all of what has come to this new presidency. Let's look at what else is there to do. Here we go. Here we go. A lot of it is highly obscured when it comes to this universal community matters. And it really is about bringing justice. And that's where I see all this lawsuits that come in with politics, from big politics from the White House all the way down to the town hall. So when I see this, it is an incomplete cycle of things that need to be like completed as a done. But when you see this, there's no like teamwork or apprenticeship. It's almost like a jump right in and do it. And you have to be like balanced with your thoughts, I hear with this card. And there really is no logic to it when you actually are reviewing, to the point where it is dictative, but they are a source. They really are. It really comes through right to this, where it is not so much of a difficulty, but it really is. I feel like that card is trying to say a juxtapose to a jurisdiction issue, to the jurisdiction issues, to the town lines, where you can't even like touch a rock without them saying that you were trespassing. So when I look at it, the Five of Swords comes through and goes, there really is nothing to do here. You really have to run it back. I have to say, as a citizen, I would just sit and watch, and I would just have a conversation. Bet you any money I'll get caught. That's what hurts, is that they're sitting there making comments. Does it boil out? Or does it have to say it's misogyny again? I mean, that's the deal. That's the offering. What's reality? They're saying it as they hear it and see it. There's a lot more people attuned after many events that have happened, that there is no victory because they see it, they hear it, they feel it. It's going to be rare that everyone is on the same page. So when I see it and I see temperance to the Page of Swords, to this, the Queen of Swords, where it actually is harsh, feminine energy, looking into everything, you can't even do. Queen of Pentacles, it really sits well. So when you look at it and you go, the devil, and you say, what is actually going on with us? What about liberation? Was it like delusional? I think that's derogatory and harsh. That is how you really need to say it. Even when you see it on the news and it comes right through, or even through the radio, like it just doesn't sit right with me. Or it is just absolute fallacy that it's going at. Because people can read people very well, even with just instinct, even if they're not highly intuitive. So when you see this and you see this Ten of Swords, it goes through so hard that this Seven of Pentacles comes in and goes, no, it just has to get done. It's just not well planted. Then it comes to halt, stop, and that's all you need to know. It really is a lesson of this apathy. When I say a lesson, like it means less of, but then they say, no, I'm going to give you a lesson about empathy and apathy, since empathy is a sin now. So when I look at it and you go, holy cow, why is that a sin? Well, once it becomes a sin, it basically is a crime. Religious law. Religious law dictates to the highest point of known. And when it's the highest point of known, then it goes down to law down to the right. So if empathy is a sin and it's a crime, where is being empathetic an actual criminal act? Because you felt. So when it really is when you felt and you actually could feel with someone else of what they're feeling, it becomes defensive to actually aggravated assault, to petty theft, to the highest point of a misdemeanor. Empathy. So when I say I don't really need to share my feelings and I don't need to feel what you're feeling, to actually say go and do and go for it because it's a free will choice, then you say then it's a sin. And then you go, there's the devil's advocate. That brings us right down to Texas. So really it's an education on how to speak and how to actually approach everyone again, but since everything is a crime. So just sit and watch and see how it plays out, since we're all in a martial law. So when you look at it and it says this, it's wealth, and it's closing a gap to like a birth, and it's strong. It's highly strong. That's a was. That is joy, absolute joy, to see someone who is fired, and that's how some people are. They got fired. I'm happy. I got them fired. And then it goes to, no, I don't side or empathize or anything with it, because it became so strong of feeling everyone else's emotions that you couldn't do. What is that? That's a true type of impedance that you can't even talk about. It really is. It really, when you see Degas, it really comes known that it's like a bomb, especially during the day. So when you see Nadis at night, at rest, like literally at rest. So when you see her or him and you go, give them a gift, give them a gift, you don't even want to do. You don't even want to do. Don't even share. This generation, especially with minors of today that I have seen and heard and seen through the cards, really don't want to do with anything. They feel so hard that it gets to the point of you're with my space so much that you're like vibrating too hard. and you go and you say, their energy is so strong. So is it an energy vampire? Is it a psychic, like cosmic event? No, it really is their energy field. It's to the point where it's trolling people. So in politics and community matters, how would that be? It really is being respectful of, no trespassing. Be respectful of the times that you go and visit. Be respectful of just, staying around in your own property and staying to yourself. And then know when it is invited, you can go and do. So when it gets to the point, even with family members, of don't go and visit me until this, it really has to do that. So lastly, let's look at the Literary Witches Oracle, because I really don't feel like anything else needs to come through on any other cards or decks or runes. What do we need to close this conversation with? When I see white dress, it really is contractual matters. It really has to do with identity of these contractual matters. I feel like it is a high watching to the point where you actually look like I got a sty in my eye. So when I look at it and I say, the wings, it will take flight. It will be known to the bone. that something was conjured or cooked up, that you couldn't do it right. So when I see this and I see the future, I have to say it really is hard, because then it's fate. It really is like these events that are not meant to happen, but they happen over free will choices that cause this incidences of health issues, even to mental health, to where you can't even like run aground. So this hedgehog is really saying like run aground, to where it's humor. It's like nasty humor that we don't like. And when you see it, it grew. And it looked beautiful at first. And it's just this whole splendor and wonder, to the point where it actually is like a type of troll that is very intelligent, the intellect. And they saw it. They truly saw it coming. And it's an offering, to where you say, there's the liberation. There is the liberation right there. It really has a story, and I feel it's not ready to be released to the public yet, in many towns and state to countrywide, of what was really going on over the last 4 to 9 years, and really needs to be made known. So with that being said, that's all we have to say for tonight. Any questions or concerns, leave a like, a comment, a share, an email. It's greatly appreciated, and we will talk to you soon.